Do you ever get that eerie feeling that something's just off? Like the world isn't quite how you remember it? You're not alone. Thousands of people are experiencing the chilling Mandela effect, a phenomenon where shared memories clash with reality. Could this be a glitch in the Matrix, or evidence of something far more mind-bending? And speaking of moments that marked a historic launch,
one of the most famous scenes in The Matrix is the big revelation between Morpheus and Neo, where Morpheus sits Neo down and gives him the option of taking the red or blue pill. Now, everyone swears that Morpheus's speech starts off with him saying, "Now what if I told you?" followed by the speech, "The Matrix is everywhere. It's all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that's been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth." Now, most of these lines are all actually in the movie, all except one. The very first line, that "what if I told you" part. Fans will swear up and down that Morpheus says that line, but it's not in the movie. And given the plot of The Matrix, it just makes this Mandela effect all the more unsettling. Next up, we have another one of the most famous lines in cinematic history, although this one does exist, although not exactly in the form everyone says it does. "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get." People quote the line all the time. People write it out in quotes and articles about the movie, but as it turns out, the line doesn't go exactly like that. Forrest actually says, "Mama always said life was like a box of chocolates." Okay? Now, later in the movie, you do see his mom say life is a box of chocolates, but not life is like a box of chocolates. Kind of easy to see how this one gets all confused, right? But, I mean, for such a famous line, it's crazy how many people get it wrong. Also kind of crazy to me how famous the line is in general. It's not a great line, I don't think. I mean, I know what I'm gonna get in a box of chocolates. Chocolate of some kind. The flavors are different, yeah, whatever, but they're all relatively the same size. They're all chocolate. Life's more like a bag of trail mix. Most of it's boring, but occasionally you get something sweet. They put M&Ms in there. This is the fruit of the Loom logo, or is it? We're gonna play a little game with the logo Mandela effects on this list. I'll show you a picture of the logos. You guess whether it's the accurate one or the false memory. Leave your results down in the comments. So, did the fruit of the Loom logo look like this? No, it did not. Turns out there's no cornucopia in the back. The logo actually looks like this, or at least it does now, whether you believe in the altered timeline thing or not. This is one I could have sworn looked different. It just looks so plain with the cornucopia missing. So what's going on here? Are we just remembering it differently? Is our current timeline being altered? Are different timelines converging? Are we trapped in a virtual world that's glitching? Again, share your thoughts down below. Alright, next logo in our Mandela effect game. Take a second to examine this Cheez-It logo here. Is this the right one? If you guessed yes, then you are actually right. This is the actual Cheez-It logo, but many people, including myself, thought it looked more like this, with the Z on the end. Cheez-Its, not Cheez-It. Cheez-Its just sounds snackier, if that's a real word. Now, the obvious explanation for this one is that people will often say it plural when speaking out loud. You're not gonna be like, hey, pass me the box of Cheez-It. You're gonna say Cheez-Its. So people might just have it in their minds that it's Cheez-Its, but that's the strange part. Look at pretty much every food product. Maybe not every one, but most of them. There's usually an S on the end for this reason. Skittles, Mentos, Fruit Loops, Doritos, Fritos, Tostitos, Lay's. If the name of the product is the food itself and not a family or like company name, like Nestle, it's usually in plural. So why Cheez-It? Just feels awkward. Well, maybe because it was actually different before. We move on to a Star Wars Mandela effect now, and no, I'm not referring to the Luke I am your father thing that's been talked about to death. I'm referring to C-3PO's silver leg, because yes, he has one. The lower part of one of his legs is silver, and apparently always has been. Now, this is not one of George Lucas's many pointless updates. It's apparently just always like this. Now, I watched the original Star Wars movies a lot when I was a kid, not as much as Star Trek, but fair amount, and I never recall C-3PO having any silver on his body. Like, his whole thing was that he's this elegant looking gold robot. All the toys of C-3PO, none of them had a silver part of the leg. The new ones do, but not back in the day. You'd think that would be a pretty obvious detail to include though, wouldn't you? Now, I want to say this one might have something to do with the fact that we used to watch Star Wars at home on smaller screens and lower VHS quality. Once the movies were remastered and stuff, everything got more clear, but I mean, in the 70s on the big screen, no one noticed the silver part of his leg, really? I don't know. What do you Star Wars nuts have to say about this one? Do you remember the silver or not? One of the most recognizable cartoon characters in history is Mickey Mouse. In fact, I think he is the most recognizable. All you need to see are those ears and you automatically think Mickey Mouse in Disney. But there's a detail that a number of people seem to forget. His tail. Yes, this one is the polar opposite of the famous Curious George Mandela effect. In case you didn't know, Curious George actually does not have a tail. Mickey Mouse does though. Makes sense that he has a tail, considering he's a mouse, but you also have the whole Goofy and Pluto both being dogs thing, so realism really isn't the focus in this universe. Now, to be fair, Mickey doesn't have a tail in every single depiction, but pretty much every major one. And I don't know about you, but I just don't picture it when I think of the character. It's not a new thing either. Way back in Mickey's very first appearance, he has the tail. Next up, we have this image here of a delicious KitKat bar. Look at that, just a nice tasty snack, classic red packaging, logo looks in order, right? What do you think? No, this image has been photoshopped. The real logo looks like this. No hyphen between the kit and the cat. And just like everything on this list, apparently that's always been the case. So many people remember there being a hyphen though. How I'd love to go back in time, walk into a convenience store, just to confirm if that were the case. I'd also grab a KitKat chunky peanut butter, because I don't think they make them anymore. Those things were spectacular. What color is Carmen Sandiego's outfit? Most people would just say red and leave it at that, but if you're like me, you also have this strange memory of seeing Carmen Sandiego in a yellow outfit as well. In fact, there are lots of people who remember this. Only no one can find any depiction of her having ever worn a yellow coat or hat. Here are a couple comments from Redditors. I remember the show, the cartoon back in the late 90s, and I could swear on a stack of holy Bibles the size of Mount Everest that Carmen Sandiego used to wear a yellow hat and yellow trench coat. Here's another. The PC game was played in class, 88-89. My teacher would play it in front of class while everyone in the room played along with open dialogue. I remember the logo screen and her wearing her yellow trench coat and matching hat. I also remember her on the TV show in the same yellow. Comments like this go on and on. So what is going on here? Some people will say that we're getting things confused with Dick Tracy, who famously wears all yellow, but I mean, Dick Tracy, really? They're both very different characters. I mean, Dick Tracy is a comic strip about a detective that came out in the 1930s. Carmen Sandiego is a series of PC games about a female globetrotting thief that came out in 1985. The only Dick Tracy thing anyone would have been super familiar with around this same time would have been the live-action Dick Tracy movie in 1990, and again, that was live action, so it would be odd that people would have blended it with a 2D animated character in their brains, but I mean, I guess it's possible. Before we get to the last point, let's finish off our Mandela effect product game. This is an image of the Raisin Bran mascot. Look correct to you? Is something off? What do you think? Leave your comments down below. Well, this has actually been photoshopped. The Raisin Bran's son has never had sunglasses. Who else distinctly remembers him wearing a pair of shades though? Just feels right, doesn't it? And we finish off today with Pikachu's tail. This is the first Mandela effect that really hit me. I always thought I knew how Pikachu looked in my brain, but I remember first hearing about the whole Mandela effect phenomenon, and Pikachu was brought up along with an image just like this, and I was like, damn, yeah, I distinctly remember Pikachu having the black on the end of the tail. And no, I'm not talking about Pichu. Pichu has never been nearly as recognizable and popular as Pikachu. I even had a friend who swore they had a small Pikachu plush when they were kids with the black on the end of the tail, and it would have been before Pichu even showed up. So I don't know, am I saying this is a genuine altering of the timeline or something like that? Who's to say? All I know is there could be something to this one.
What is the Mandela effect for those of you who don't know? Well, it is essentially a phenomenon where large amounts of people remember an idea or an event wrong. It was coined in 2009 after an article was published by Fiona Broom, who noticed the phenomenon that people seem to remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s, but that's obviously wrong because he died in 2013. Well, I guess not so obvious, since a lot of people swear that it happened. Many people believe that these examples are proof that we could be living in a parallel branch of the universe. After all, if you follow Hugh Everett's many worlds hypothesis, it could be that Mandela was both alive and dead at the same time. Hence the term the Mandela effect. Number 9. Looney Tunes versus Looney Tunes. Sound the same, but it's not. So many people believe that Looney Tunes was actually spelled Toons, but the reality is that it's actually tunes, like iTunes. Doesn't seem like that big of a difference, but why would it be tunes? Why would it be tunes? The show isn't about music, though musical numbers do occasionally happen, but it's not about music. The reason it's tunes, not tunes, lies way back in the 1920s. Disney was making bank on a series called Silly Symphonies that encouraged people to buy sheet music. They didn't have television, so entertaining themselves at the piano was a common thing to do. To keep the bankroll rolling, Disney came out with 2 new programs, Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes. The more you know. Number 8. Oscar Mayer versus Mayer. It's actually Oscar Mayer, not Meyer. It's actually spelled M-A-Y-E-R, not M-E-Y-E-R. Confused? It's okay, it's not your fault. There's actually an explanation as to why so many people think the spelling is the latter. In the famous Oscar Mayer Wiener song, see Oscar, I can't help but say it, Oscar Mayer Wiener song, the singers say Oscar Mayer, which doesn't spell out Meyer in our heads. So like, we know Mayer is supposed to be pronounced Mayer, just look at John Mayer, that's how he spells his last name, and it would be weird to call him John Mayer, right? Try singing the song in your head right now, or out loud, do you, and try saying Mayer instead of Meyer. Sounds weird, doesn't it? Number 7, We Are the Champions. So I actually listened to this song when I found this out, which was today. It's true. And the karaoke lover inside me feels betrayed. I distinctly remember the ending of the song, Freddie Mercury belting out "of the world," but he doesn't do it. But every time I catch myself singing, like waiting to join him in that final triumphant "of the world" at the end of the song, but it never happens, and now I know why. Because he never did it. Freddie actually only ever ended the song that way once, when he performed at Wembley Stadium. The performance was so iconic that we remember it that way. Number 6, Henry VIII and his turkey leg. I remember going to medieval fairs, medieval times as a kid, it was my jam. And carts always sold massive, like I don't even know how they got a bird that big, massive turkey legs. A famous portrait of Henry VIII shows him with a turkey leg, but that's not actually the case. But historians swear they saw it and swear that it existed. He's actually holding a pair of leather gloves in his hand. Perhaps because of his heavy-set depiction and malicious behavior in life, many people wanted to find a reason to make fun of the king, so you'll often see cartoon drawings of the king often paired with a turkey leg in his hand. Another reason people paired this image with Henry is due to another painting of him in Anne Boleyn. In it, he is holding a mirror which somewhat appears to be a turkey leg. Number 5, guys, this one's weird. I never noticed it. Obviously, they wouldn't be on this list if I knew it before, right? I guess so. Anyways, C-3PO, the golden droid of the franchise, wasn't actually all that golden. Apparently, he has a silver leg. Maybe it was the lighting in each shot, but I seriously don't know. I don't know how I could have overlooked this. I've watched 4, 5, and 6 specifically because 6 is my favorite because it's obviously the best. I've watched them so many times and I never noticed it, not once. But I'm comforted. I don't even think I can call myself a Star Wars fan anymore. It's just, I feel so lied to. But I'm comforted by the fact that I'm not the only one. To be fair, there's so much going on in the film, I never thought to look at his leg and be like, oh, look at his leg. But apparently this discrepancy is due to the fact that when manufacturers released the toy of C-3PO, they didn't add the silver leg, leading most of us to believe he was entirely gold. Number 4, the Berenstain Bears. Everyone remembers the Berenstain Bears on TV in the morning or after school. For me, there was nothing better than grabbing a glass of OJ, sitting down with some cereal, seeing what those bears would get up to next. Before you get worried, yes, they actually existed. But, of course there's a but. It's Berenstain Bears. Stain, not Stein. I swear to God, they changed it and just didn't tell anyone. There's no way. The reason we might remember it that way is probably because of how we say it. No one says, oh, the Berenstain Bears. Nobody says it like that. Somehow we got into the habit of saying it that way and we put the pieces together in our head. Funny little world. funny little world. Alright, number 3. Curious George. Had to be one of my absolute favorite stories as a kid. I just loved getting to hear all about that mischief the monkey was gonna get into. Curious George is a monkey after all, and most monkeys have tails. Something the illustrator left out when he created George. He gave a man a big yellow hat, but he didn't give George a tail. Again, I asked the MA team, and we were pretty well divided. Some people knew he didn't have one right away, which kind of goes to show how big of a fan they were. Me? I'm still struggling to picture George hanging from a tree using his legs and not his tail. Doesn't make sense in my head. Anyways, number 2, the Monopoly Man. This one caused a fair amount of discourse between the MA gang. I don't know how this happened. I can't unsee it in my brain. I actually hate Monopoly because it just never ends. I need there to be an ending so then I can leave and escape and run away. Cause like, if the game goes on too long, I want to die. My nightmare was once playing a 2-hour game of Monopoly. That little monocled man laughing at me when I was sent to jail. Except for the fact he didn't have a monocle. He has 20/20 vision. How the heck? How did I remember that wrong? Apparently, the reason could be that he looked very similar to the Peanut Man? I don't know. What do you think, guys? Number 1, this is for all the 90s babies, or 80s babies, whatever works. Shazam! I think I had to take a knee for a minute after this one. It just doesn't make sense. Do you guys remember the comedian Sinbad playing a genie in a movie called Shazam? 2 kids accidentally summoned a genie and Sinbad played the genie who tried to make their dad fall in love again. Like, I can see it. I can see it in my head. Sinbad with his like purple shirt and turban and stuff, and he's hilarious and he was charming and snarky, but it doesn't exist. There are pictures, but no one knows where it's from. And I looked on his IMDb and there's no movie where he played a genie, but there's pictures of him playing a genie and I just don't get it. There was a movie called Shazam with a similar premise, but played by Shaquille O'Neal, which I also remember. I definitely watched that movie too. If Shazam doesn't exist, where did this picture come from? I don't know. Which I also remember, but it was a different movie than Shazam. Where did it go? Where did it go? Or did it exist at all? Who knows?
Luke, I am your father. It's probably the most iconic line in Star Wars, or even in all movies, as Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader are battling it out. Darth Vader drops the plot twist that he is Luke's father, but he never actually said Luke.
That's not true. That's impossible.
He said, no, I am your father. Now, I know a lot of you guys aren't going to believe me, so this is the unedited clip from the actual movie.
He told me you killed him. No, I am your father.
Alright, moving on to number 9 now, we have Uncle Pennybags. You guys know the board game Monopoly, right? I want you to try and picture now what the Monopoly Man looks like. Is he wearing a monocle? Well, that's only in your imagination, because Uncle Pennybags has never worn a monocle. Now, when I first heard this one, I had to go and personally check my own copy of Monopoly, and I still can't quite believe it. Alright, at number 8 now, Mirror Mirror on the Wall. I'm sure we all know this famous line from Snow White. The Queen turns to her magic mirror and says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" Nope. She didn't. She never said that in the movie. She actually said, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" I don't know where we got that other line from, but I'm a little creeped out. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Jiffy. Even if you guys don't like peanut butter, I'm pretty sure you've all heard of Jiffy peanut butter, right? Probably one of the most famous brands on the planet, except it's never existed. You're probably thinking of Jif. For some reason, a lot of people swear blind that it's called Jiffy. Even the people who put Jif peanut butter on their toast every morning will tend to call it Jiffy. If you're one of those people, I'm sorry to shatter your peanut butter world like this. Alright, at the number 6 spot now, we have Tinkerbell. This one creeped me out. If any of you guys are around my age or older, I'm sure you will remember a Disney intro that featured Tinkerbell. You know, the one where she flew across the screen before the movie started and dotted the eye with her wand before sending an explosion of sparkles tumbling down over the Disney castle. You remember? I remember. Well, apparently history doesn't remember, because nobody can seem to find a single example of this actually happening. Ever. And this one isn't just a few people remembering this, it's millions, and it always seems to be the exact same details. I'd love for someone to explain this one to me, because I'm a little bit concerned that we're all going mad. Coming in at number 5 now, we have We Are the Champions. I'm sure many of you guys will have heard We Are the Champions by Queen. It's played every time anyone wins anything, and we all like to have a good sing-along with it. You know the ending of it, right? We are the champions, we are the champions, no time for losers, because we are the champions, and that's where it ends. There is no of the world like people usually sing. I did not believe this one, but if you go and listen to the actual song, it's true. It does appear earlier on in the song, so maybe that's where people are getting confused. Alright, next up at number 4 now we have KitKat. Classic chocolate bar, isn't it? Now, I want you guys to write KitKat in your head. Was there a dash between the two words? That's how I picture a KitKat bar too, with a little dash in between the kit and the cat. But we invented that, apparently. There has never been a dash between the two words. Some people think they imagine the dash because other phrases have it. Other people say that's wrong and they swear blind that their favourite chocolate bar's name has somehow changed over the years. Coming out at number 3 now, we have Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is one of the most famous paintings of all time. Millions of people recognize it, so you'd think that somebody would notice if it changed. A lot of people claim that years ago Mona Lisa used to look kind of glum with just a little flicker of a smirk on her lips. Nowadays they say she has changed. Now she's just straight up smiling. Some scientists say this is an optical illusion based on what angle you view the painting from, but others are adamant that a smile has just crept in over the years. Okay, next up at number 2 now we have King Henry VIII. This is King Henry VIII, the fat king of England, who famously married, divorced and beheaded a number of his wives. He's also famous for that portrait of him standing with one leg up on a stool and eating a turkey leg. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about, except you guessed it, it's never existed. You can see many modern examples of this picture based on a portrait that has simply never existed. And finally at number 1 now we have Forrest Gump. Tom Hanks' award-winning role as Forrest Gump is a movie full of memorable scenes and quotes, but if you've seen it, you'll know that one line is the most famous of them all. Life is like a box of chocolates, you never know which one you're gonna get. Well, the actual line is life was like a box of chocolates, past tense. For some reason, everyone, myself included, remembers it as life is like a box of chocolates. I can even hear him saying it in my head. Even Google suggests life is, not life was, when you're looking up this quote. Maybe Google has also been fooled by the Mandela effect. I've intentionally got our editor to blur this out while you guys think about the spelling of this famous fast food company. I'm sure many of you have eaten there before. How is the chick part spelled? C-H-I-C? C-H-I-K? It's got like a weird spelling, hasn't it? Nope. It's this. It's just the normal spelling of the word chick. Yeah, this one even got me. Somehow, millions of people around the world seem to remember the name of this company being spelt a different way, usually with the word chick just ending in a single C or K. The company has been around since 1946 though, which leaves just one explanation: living in a parallel universe where everything is exactly the same, except Chick-fil-A has an extra letter in its name. Thank God we spotted that. Next up at number 9 now we have Interview with the Vampire. Okay, so there are a few on this list that I have never experienced or even heard of. This isn't one of them. This is a Mandela effect example that really stumped me the first time I heard about it. Interview with the Vampire is a 1994 movie starring Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. Now I'll be honest, I've never actually seen the movie, but up until very recently I would have sworn that it was called Interview with a Vampire, not the Vampire, a vampire. I had heard people talk about it all the time. I had a friend who absolutely loved it, but somehow I had been hearing the wrong thing all these years. It wasn't just me though, many people feel the same. This is such a common mistake that the top search result on Google for this movie is actually the incorrect version. My version. And I'm sticking to my version. Thank you. Next up number 8 now we have JFK. Normally when I talk about President John F. Kennedy, it's some sort of conspiracy theory about his death. Not today though. Today we're just going to count the number of people in the car when JFK was shot in that famous footage. Most people, myself included, think there were 4. I wasn't around in 1963. I'm just referring to the footage that I've seen, but I remember there being 4 people, 2 in the front and then JFK and Jackie Kennedy in the back. Well, for one of the most watched pieces of footage of all time, it seems we weren't paying attention, as there were in fact 6 people in the car. If you were one of the people who thought this, you can be forgiven though, as the camera angle often makes it difficult to see properly. And moving on to number 7 now, we have Curious George. Who remembers the adventures of Curious George? From 2006 to 2015, this monkey entertained kids all over the world in his TV series, a show which was adapted by books of the same name. Do you remember his tail? his little monkey tail? Well, if you do, your memory deceives you. Ever since Curious George first appeared in children's books in 1939, he has been without a tail. I'm pretty sure some of you have now paused the video by this point to go and prove me wrong, but yeah, no tail, sorry. It's understandable though. If there's one iconic thing about a monkey, it's his tail. So well done to George for being iconic without one. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Barbie Girl. I'm a Barbie girl in what? What's the next line there? I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world? Is that what you were gonna say? Well, that's wrong. It's never been getting it wrong. Not massively wrong though, but wrong all the same. Take a listen.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
That's right, she sings I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world. Not our world, the Barbie world. It's like a separate dimension, a parallel universe if you will. Perhaps this very song is the reason why the Mandela Hannibal Lecter. Since its release in February 1991, The Silence of the Lambs has become one of the most famous movies of all time. Not just within the sort of horror thriller genre, but across all genres and eras. Anthony Hopkins plays the part of Hannibal Lecter, a former psychiatrist and incarcerated cannibalistic serial killer. The scene where he is first introduced to Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, has become iconic in its own right. If any of you have seen it, I'm going to ask you, what does Hannibal first say to Clarice? Oh wait, okay, waiting's over. If you think he said, hello Clarice, well I'm afraid to say you're wrong. He never said anything of the sort. Let's finish by taking a look at what actually went down.
Good morning.
Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
You're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you?
Moving on to number 4 now, we have Mr. Rogers. For over 30 years, Mr. Rogers entertained and taught children how to live and love in his TV series Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Millions of young Americans grew up watching it. In recent years, it's become even more famous internationally. With all these people watching it, you would think that everyone would get the theme song, right? Right? Well, apparently not. The opening song was an iconic part of the whole show. Let's hear a little bit now. But now we get to the interesting part. This is the part everyone seems to get wrong. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people think that Mr. Rogers sings It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. But instead he sings this.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor.
Right there, he sings It's a Beautiful Day in this neighborhood. Not the neighborhood, not your neighborhood, not my neighborhood, just his neighborhood. Kind of takes the magic out of it when I break it down like that. Let's move on. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Berenstain Bears. This is a franchise that has had books since the 1960s and TV adaptations ever since. It follows the life of a family of bears, and each episode has a lesson to teach. It was popular in North America, so if you didn't grow up there, like me, there's a chance you've never heard of it at all. Well, since the Mandela effect became a thing, many people all over the world have now heard of it. Essentially, lots of people thought the series was called the Berenstain Bears. It's not Bernstein, it's Berenstain. That may seem like a simple mistake, but people swear that it was never Bernstein. They specifically remember the TV show calling it Bernstein. They remember the books having Bernstein on the front. They are 100% sure, but when they go and check, they're wrong. And it's pretty freaky for some people. Some people have even produced products with Bernstein written on them, but they have often been dismissed as knockoffs or just replicas, or maybe they fell through a portal from another universe, or that. Next up at number 2 now, we have Sex and the City. This was a romantic comedy TV series set in New York that ran from 1998 until 2004. It was huge. There were even 2 spin-off movies afterwards. The thing is though, most people remember it as Sex in the City, but it never was. It has officially always been Sex and the City. Emphasis on the and, not is. If you're watching this and thinking that I must have got it wrong, well, you're not alone. Many people have made this mistake, including journalists. Countless reviews and articles have been written about the show that refer to it by this wrong name. And finally, number 1 now, we have Sally Fields. This is a lesser known one that might interest some of you more serious Mandela effect researchers. In 1985, Sally Fields won her Oscar for Best Actress in Places in the Heart. She gave a very memorable and rousing speech. Let's take a little look at that right here.
This means so much more to me this time. I don't know why. I think the first time I hardly felt it because it was all so new.
After that, whenever someone wanted to talk about that speech, they would quote the last thing that Sally said when thanking everyone. She said, "You like me, you really like me." But did she? Let's take a listen.
And I can't deny the fact that you like me. right now. You like me.
She didn't say, you like me, you really like me. She actually said, you like me, right now you like me. Many people say they remember watching this speech and that something must have changed because they remember it differently. The first one. There are even some people who claim that the audio glitch we hear when she says it is some sort of sign that has been tampered with or passed through from a parallel universe.
You like me, right now. You like me.
Personally, I think it's just a case of bad memory with people and maybe audio levels peaking.
Let's talk about what exactly a parallel universe is and how they came to be known as mirror worlds. A parallel universe, simply put, is a universe that is similar to our own but also incredibly different. They exist alongside our own but follow their own unique set of laws in physics. They are endless and cover every possible scenario that could ever happen in the history of ever and beyond. I sound like Buzz Lightyear. They could be almost the exact same as our own, with the difference of one person wearing a blue shirt one day rather than a red one. Or they could be vastly different, with oceans and lands existing in completely opposite geographical locations and gravity pulling us up instead of keeping us down. Conversations regarding fate and the nature of free will turn pretty much upside down when the idea of a parallel universe gets involved. It's confusing and overwhelming, but not entirely inconceivable, suggesting that scientifically they definitely don't not exist. And here comes James with an explanation of why they probably do, other than the fact that they definitely don't. You get it.
Why exactly is our universe expanding? Well, a recent study by the Journal of Cosmology and Astroparticle Physics may have an explanation, and it relates to parallel universes. The universe is always expanding, and most scientists believe dark energy is behind the growth, but dark energy has never actually been directly observed. A recent study published in December of 2023 by researchers from the University of Copenhagen and the Tokyo Institute of Technology put forward that our universe might be expanding because it's merging with baby parallel universes. Almost like our universe is this cosmic blob absorbing other smaller universes, kind of like Galactus. Physicist Jan Ambjorn explained that, quote, the accelerated expansion of our universe caused by the mysterious dark energy might have a simple, intuitive explanation, the merging with so-called baby universes, and that a model for this might fit the data better than the standard cosmological model. Obviously, this is theoretical, but it is interesting and would explain some things. For example, it could explain the rapid inflation of our universe that it experienced right after the Big Bang. Scientists have always believed this inflation was caused by a hypothetical field called the inflation, but the new study suggests that our universe, when it was just a baby, could have been absorbed by another older universe, invites the suggestion that this expansion was caused by a collision with a larger universe. That is, it was really our universe, which was absorbed in another parent universe.
Next up, we have the scientific anomaly of dark matter, which scientists have recently begun to theorize could possibly create, or have already created, invisible parallel universes. You see, a long time ago, scientists discovered Neptune after noticing gravitational anomalies affecting Uranus, causing it to move in a strange way. Since then, scientists have noticed many stars and galaxies moving in ways that don't quite make sense, but unlike the discovery of Neptune in regards to the strange behavior, scientists have not been able to find any quantifiable reason for the anomaly, and so they theorized that there must be some kind of invisible force pulling on the stars and galaxies, the invisible force likely being dark matter. It is believed that dark matter is made up of tiny particles that have limited, if any, interaction with one another. Basically, it's the complete opposite of regular matter. The particles are shy, so shy in fact that they actively push things away from them rather than pulling things towards them. This is the same force that scientists believe is causing the universe to expand. But wait, there's more. Scientists theorize that it is possible that dark matter is not actually as boring, a relative term, as it seems, and that it might possibly contain an entire sector of hidden particles and possibly even a hidden that is an exact copy of ours, containing hidden versions of electrons and protons, which together create hidden atoms and molecules, which combine to make hidden planets, animals, stars, and possibly even people. It's out there, for sure, but according to the theory, so is at least one, if not countless, parallel universes.
Next up, we have a very strange story about a couple whose neighbor had just recently died, but then they saw him just a couple months after reading his obituary. Did they jump into a parallel universe? You be the judge. The story comes to us from Reddit user VIII. The Redditor and his wife worked in the same building, so they often walked to work together. One morning they left the house, they passed by the doctor's office because his wife had an appointment. She stopped there and he continued on to work. Nothing unusual. Now, on his route, the user noticed a familiar face in the distance. It was an old Italian man who used to sit outside his apartment, greeting neighborhood commuters. But the eerie part was, the man had died a couple months before. The Redditor crossed the street, convincing himself that it was just a lookalike. He saw the man, he knew he was dead, but dismissed it as maybe a mistaken identity. He thought nothing more of it and continued to work. Now, at work, his wife called, sounding concerned. She said, "I think I'm hallucinating." She explained she had seen their dead neighbor, sitting in his usual spot just like the husband had seen. The Redditor found this strange since he'd been reading about switching dimensions. He didn't tell his wife about it because it seemed too out there, but she suggested they might have switched dimensions. Something she would normally never say. So you're probably thinking, sure, the man they saw may have been a look-alike, but here's where it gets even stranger. They'd gone to the neighbor's funeral, seen social media posts mourning his death, but now they couldn't find any trace of him having died.
Next up, kind of going off of James's point, while it's not entirely scientific, it is incredibly interesting. It is the Mandela effect, but I am not just talking about the whole Berenstain Bears debate, or even whether or not Curious George had a tail, or if it was ever in the city rather than and the city, or if it's spelt Febreze or Febreze. It's spelt Febreze, by the way. Or Skechers or Skechers, or if the Monopoly man had a monocle or no monocle, if the fruit of the Loom logo ever had a cornucopia, if it's called Cheez-Its or Cheez-It, or even if the fact that chartreuse is actually a shade of green, not magenta as we all remember being taught in our past. I'm talking about these Mandela effects that might have very well changed your life as you know it, like you incorrectly remembering a dead neighbor, or the results of an election and the events that played out after the fact, or recalling different laws or policies that you can distinctly remember being enacted but that in reality never existed. If you've ever experienced anything like this on a personal level and none of your friends or family can remember the events in question, you might just be in the wrong universe, but don't worry, we're happy to have you.
This next story also comes to us from Reddit, from a user Living4You95, who talks about her glasses mysteriously changing color. So in 2018, the Reddit user bought blue framed glasses from Walmart. She had blue Vans, a blue purse, tried to get as much blue stuff as possible, including the blue glasses. After having a baby a couple years after, she started feeling the blue glasses were a bit childish. She stopped taking selfies in them, but still wore them every day. Now, one day while driving home, the Redditor looked in the rearview mirror and was shocked to see her glasses were now black on the front, with only the sides being blue. She thought, like, what the heck, did my husband prank me on April 1st and I just hadn't noticed? So she texted her husband, who assured her that he wasn't pranking her. She texted her mom asking what color her glasses were. Her mom said, blue. Why? The Redditor then texted her mother-in-law, who also said they were blue, and her best friend from middle school confirmed, saying, I know they were blue. We were together nearly every day for 2 years. They were blue. The Redditor insisted they never got new glasses. They even checked old pictures on Instagram, Facebook, and her phone, and now suddenly all the glasses in the pictures were black and blue. And it's odd that people wouldn't have noticed this, because that black is pretty predominant on there.
Next up, we have cosmic background radiation and how it might be hinting at not only a parallel universe, but one that may have very well bumped heads with our own. In a distant region of space towards the constellation of Eridanus, cosmic background radiation showed evidence of a large hole in space. Yes, a literal hole in space, completely void of all types of matter, including normal matter, which makes up gas and dust, stars, planets, and galaxies. This spot, it's completely empty, and it's incredibly massive, measuring 1 billion light years in diameter, making it one of the largest voids discovered to date. For comparison, the previous record-holding void was only somewhere between 250 and 330 million light years in diameter. Well, some scientists have begun theorizing that the newly discovered void, in correspondence with the other void located in the opposite hemisphere, could have been created by another universe bumping into our own, and either displacing or destroying a large chunk of matter within our universe, which is terrifying. Yeah, that's just...
Next up, we have an interesting theory involving math. Never thought I'd use the words math and interesting in the same sentence, but here we are. Maybe I've switched universes. The mathematical multiverse theory suggests different mathematical structures might represent separate universes. Since there are infinite mathematical possibilities, there could be infinite universes. So think of our universes being made entirely of math, a huge cosmic equation, everything we see and experience from tiny particles to massive galaxies, they can all be broken down using mathematics. So according to this theory, different mathematical structures create different universes, each with its own unique set of rules. Basically, if a mathematical structure can exist, so can a universe based on it, in theory.
Next up, we have quantum mechanics, which very existence suggests the possibility of endless parallel universes. For those of you who don't know, quantum mechanics is a branch of mechanics that provides a mathematical description for motion and interaction within subatomic particles. Concepts like quantization of energy, how much an electron can radiate or absorb, wave-particle duality, that anything can either be described as a wave or a particle, the uncertainty principle, the fact that we cannot know both the position and speed of photons and electrons with perfect accuracy, and the correspondence principle, the limit of large quantum numbers causing predictions of quantum physics to mirror classical physics, can all be used to hint towards a theory of many worlds multiverse, in which the universe splits into multiple branches anytime any decision is made, anywhere by anyone. Basically, any outcome of any event exists in its own separate universe. What's interesting about this is that it also might solve the time travel debate in relation to the bootstrap paradox as well as the grandfather paradox, which, if you've never heard of, we have a video on. And the reason why it solves this debate is because it states that if you go back and change something in the past, you haven't actually changed anything in your own universe, just simply gone and created a new one.
Alright, finally, we've covered countless unexplained disappearances on this channel from across time. Some are individuals who mysteriously vanish. Some are mass cases of vanishings, like on planes or ships. But what does this have to do with parallel universes? Well, of course, there are tons of possible explanations for people going missing. Flawless kidnappings, their bodies ending up in places that just don't get searched. Alien abductions, probably the most likely. But what about the possibility of them having crossed over to a parallel universe? It sounds pretty far-fetched, but I mean, who really knows? Maybe all these people saying they feel like they've crossed over into a different reality because things are different than they remembered really have crossed over into a different universe. And their friends and loved ones in their original universe are desperately searching for them to no avail.
Many times in history, people have found objects that they think could be evidence of a parallel universe intersecting with our own. Those thoughts were raised again when in 1936 a hammer was found in London, Texas. While on a walk, a couple found a hammer that looked like ones that had been used in the late 1800s. So cool, they found an old hammer. Well, there's actually much more to it. The hammer had not rusted at all and still hasn't since it's been found. And it was also found encased in rock that dated dated back to the Cretaceous period. For those of you who don't know, that's around 100 million years ago. This is obviously weird because most people agree that humans only started popping up around 200,000 years ago. So how could this hammer have come to exist? Some people believe that it's the remnant of a parallel universe where humans developed long before they did on our Earth, or that it had potentially traveled back in time. If you live in Texas and want to check out this infamous hammer for yourself, you can find it at Carl Bow's Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. Number 9. Black holes. The existence of black holes is one of the greatest yet unexplained wonders of our universe, the first picture of a black hole only having been taken back in 2019. So how are they evidence of parallel universes? Well, let's get into some science here. Black holes are so hard to study because everything we've sent out there to try and get information is never seen again, people assuming that it's destroyed upon entering the hole. But Stephen Hawking said that whatever enters a black hole does come out, but it comes out in another universe. Because of the law of conservation of mass, even if something is destroyed, evidence of its presence would still be able to be seen. They would be visible in hair-like images that trace its path into the black hole. But Stephen Hawking noticed that evidence showed these hairs were not present, meaning the item has completely disappeared from our universe. And I'm really hoping this is making sense. Stephen Hawking says that this is good evidence that they have been transported to another universe, saying black holes are not the eternal prisons that we once thought. Number 8. Cloud City. In October of 2015, Chinese citizens were shocked by what appeared to be a floating city within the sky. Multiple people taking photos and videos of the cityscape that seemed to loom above them within the clouds. The shape was far too specific to brush it off as being anything man-made, and looked to clearly be a cloud city. People were left wondering what it could be, and theories popped up of parallel universes or even secret holographic technology. There was no time to answer these questions or speculate if it had even happened at all, as the exact same thing took place again in China in March of the following year. More photos and videos popping up again of the incident. Many people believe that this supposed city in the sky is evidence of another universe crossing over into our own. Feel free to take a look at the pictures for yourself and make your own decision. Number 7. Deja vu. Have you ever been walking down the street and gotten the sudden feeling like you'd done that before, even though you haven't? This is a phenomenon that is known as deja vu, or already seen. As of yet, there is no real scientific explanation for why people all over the world experience these feelings. And there are theories that range from memory problems to glitches in the Matrix. People who believe that deja vu is evidence of parallel universes describe it like this. Think of a radio where you can only hear one frequency at a time. The parallel universes beside us are at different frequencies. However, it's possible that for one small moment the universes might vibrate at the same frequency and become in sync. Since parallel universes are all supposedly just slightly different, when these in sync moments happen and you believe that you've already had this conversation before, it's possible that you feel that way because you did, just in a parallel universe. Number 6. The double slit experiment. Okay, this one is very sciencey, so bear with me. The double slit experiment was performed in the 1920s and seemed to offer convincing evidence of potential multiple parallel realities. The theory proposes that if tennis balls were fired at a wall through a single slit, then the marks on the wall would line up with the slit. So if you created two slits, it would create two lines on the wall. And if you fired waves through the wall, they would go through the splits, but still continue to spread out and leave multiple lines on the wall. And electrons should theoretically act in the same way that tennis balls do, but they didn't. They also made multiple lines as though they had been interacting with each other in the way that the waves did. But even when fired one at a time, it still made two sets of waves. For this to happen, it would mean that each electron somehow managed to travel through both slits. When they tried to film the electrons, they instead went back to just forming two lines like tennis balls. So this suggests that while parallel universes may be interacting with our own, we just don't have the technology to see it. Number 5. The blue rock. Alright, after that, let's go to something way more simple. In fact, let's go to something as simple as a rock. In 1990, in Sierra Leone, West Africa, an archaeologist found a puzzling bright blue stone. When it was sent for studies, it was found that it was not similar to anything that could be found on Earth, and it was determined that it was not from this planet at all. One person who once held the stone said, "It was perplexing and I had no idea what I was looking at, and I had no point of reference to compare it to anything else I had previously seen or handled before." Parts of this stone have come into the possession of many collectors over the years, and it is incredibly highly valued, likely because many people believe that, similarly to the London Hammer, this is an artifact that has traveled to our own Earth from a parallel universe. Number 4. The Mandela Effect. The term the Mandela Effect first came around in 2009, when a woman named Fiona realized that she and many others shared a false memory of Nelson Mandela having died in prison, when in reality he was still alive. She created a website to explain her observance of this phenomenon, shocked by just how many people all over the globe could possibly share this false memory. Over the years, many people have come together to share different examples of this Mandela effect. Some of the most famous ones being the spelling of the Berenstain Bears title, Darth Vader saying "Luke, I am your father" instead of "No, I am your father," and Curious George having a tail. Many people believe that a possible explanation for this is that the false memories are correct, but they're correct in a parallel universe, the memories bleeding over into our own world, as how else could so many people share this same fake memory? Number 3. The cold spot. Alright, back to science once again. When the Big Bang created our universe, the wavelengths of light expanded, changing the color and temperature of the universe to what we now perceive as black, creating the cosmic microwave background which maps the creation of our universe according to the Big Bang. While scientists were studying this background, they discovered what they referred to as the cold spot, being the size of 1.8 billion light years. While also being colder, it apparently also contains 20% less matter than it should. So how could they possibly explain the existence of this cold spot and why it is the way that it is? Well, experts believe that this is evidence of a parallel universe having crashed into ours through quantum entanglement, impact forcing energy out of the area and leaving behind the cold spot. Number 2. The Hadron Collider. Researchers at the Super Collider in Switzerland started researching in 2015, hoping to find evidence of alternate universes. They have done various different tests trying to find these parallel universes that would not exist in the visible 3 dimensions of our own universe, but instead be made up of dimensions that we cannot perceive. One scientist theorized that the Hadron Collider could reveal particles that could only exist in these other dimensions, and being able to see them would give us almost undeniable evidence of the existence of parallel universes in line with our own. She said that these particles would have the exact same properties of particles in our own universe, but would have greater mass. All of this is still theoretical right now, but plenty of theoretical things from the past have been discovered and made reality, so it may not be long. Number 1. The Taured Traveler. In 1954, a European plane landed in Tokyo. On the plane was a man who spoke several different languages, and he told the people there that he was visiting on business. He then gave them his passport, which said that he was coming from a place called Taured. If you've never heard of this country, then don't worry, you're not alone. That's because it doesn't actually exist, and it's a fictional country that is in between the borders of France and Spain. The man's passport was visa stamped, and he even provided a bank statement from the Taured Bank. His documents were taken and held in airport security while the man was left in a guarded hotel room waiting for police to arrive. But when they got there, the man was gone. People believe that this man was a visitor from a parallel universe where European history was different and led to the creation of the country of Taured.